Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. Now, our guest today is one of the foremost yoga teachers in the world in our generation. I had the great privilege of studying with him personally several years ago, and you're going to really want to hear what he has to say today. Our guest is Joseph LePage. Joseph LePage is the founder of Integrative Yoga Therapy and the co-author of the book called Yoga Toolbox for Teacher and Students, which is one of the most widely used materials in teacher training programs, both in the United States and Brazil. So if you're a certified yoga teacher, you probably read this book. He's also the co-author of the book Mudras for Healing and Transformation. And you can find out more about Joseph LePage and his life-changing work at his website, iytyogatherapy.com. Welcome, Joseph LePage.
Thank you.
So again, I have to give a raving endorsement for Joseph LePage because I'm 62. I still teach 7 yoga classes every week. And years ago, I had the great privilege of studying with Joseph LePage at the Kripalu Institute. And Joseph LePage, it was your mindset about the way that you look at the body that just provided a total transformation in the way that I think. And even in my work today as a medical intuitive healer, when I do my readings, I read what I call the 5 levels of healing: the physical body, the energy body, the emotional, mental, and spiritual. And it all goes back to what you taught me in integrative yoga therapy. So, Joseph LePage, you founded Integrative Yoga Therapy. What are the fundamental principles of integrative yoga therapy?
Well, I think first, of course, it's that 5 kosha model. But it's also that the focus is on the student and not the teacher. I had an opportunity to spend a couple of years in India, actually visiting all the different yoga therapy centers, kind of wanting to learn more about healing myself, and met wonderful people. And yet within the culture, there's so much focus on the teacher. And here in our work, even in Brazil today, so I've been teaching yoga for more than 30 years. The more I learn, the more I understand that each person is different and that I'm there to assist them, not to give them a sense of what's true, but actually to create a space in which they can find what's true. So at our center here in Brazil, we look at it as a way of creating a kind of a place where the plant can bloom, where the flower can bloom, and not how should this flower be, what color is, what does it look like, but each person is a seed, and then we create a space, and that seed is going to bloom in different ways for each person. And when I look at our trainings here, whether it's a yoga therapy training or a teacher training, with all respect for what happens in India, and people do get benefit from doing it the other way around, but it's just not what we do. Because first of all, I'm not a guru and I don't have absolute truth to give. So maybe they do. But in our case, it's just everyone comes in different. And in India, you go to a teacher training, the idea is everyone comes out the same, with the same t-shirt, even with the same smile. So the idea is at the end of a teacher training, everyone comes out with the same smile. It's like the guru smiles like that, so you should smile like that too. But actually, everyone comes out in here different, and they come out more different. And so that idea that everyone needs to find their own truth, And everyone starts in those 5 koshas in different ways. Some people start at the spiritual, but they need to work with the physical. I still do a yoga practice, and the physical is really important. I have a new book coming out on pranayamas for mudras, pranayamas for healing transformation. And so the physical practice is important. Some people who start with the spiritual, they have to work more with the physical and really get those postures down, so they get the vitality they need, they get the energy they need, they get the strength in the bones and the muscles that they need. So every part of that model of the 5 koshas has to be worked with. And so the way that people start, where they start, and how they progress, I think that's an individual path. And so that's along with the 5 koshas, that's a real foundation of integrative yoga therapy.
So again, what I so appreciate about your teaching, Joseph LePage, is the mindset about how we approach the body and what's going on with people. Now, Joseph LePage, founder of Integrative Yoga Therapy, many people would say that all exercise can be therapeutic and that all yoga can be healing. What is it specifically about integrative yoga therapy that you feel leads to actual healing?
I think it's the way we put those koshas together. So, for example, that spiritual body, obviously, we all want to get there. And in a certain way, that spiritual body is nothing more than saying, I can finally be myself. Mm-hmm. After all the different ways of trying to be other things and other people, that there's something about me that's so profound and so solid and so real and so deep that answers who I am. That is my life purpose, being who I am. So there may be spiritual experiences, there may be experiences of being in heaven. And those are important because they tell us what spirituality is about, what religion's about. Why do religions teach a belief in heaven? Because it's not a belief, it's an experience. But then how do I get there? So then we go to that mental body. And so it's made of beliefs. And so until I can remove these limiting beliefs about who I am, what others owe me, what I have to achieve in my life, all of these kinds of things, until I remove all of those limiting beliefs, how can I reach that place of spirituality and be comfortable with myself? Because as long as I have those beliefs to some extent, even if it's a belief about being a famous yoga teacher, I'm living someone else's life. And as long as I'm living someone else's life, I can't be who I am. And those limiting beliefs are going to cause those constrictions in the emotional body. And those constrictions in the emotional body are going to cause constrictions in the energy body. And it's those constrictions in the energy body that are eventually going to cause those energy blockages in the physical body. And so the way we work is we do want to be on that spiritual plane, but it has to be in a way that's absolutely normal, in a way that's absolutely authentic. And to do that, I'm going to have to work on all of these different layers of beliefs about my family of origin, layers of belief about relationship. I would say those layers of belief we can look at all the chakras. First chakra, layers of belief about survival, layers of belief about having to struggle to work and to earn, that I'm not safe. Second chakra, layers of belief about relationship. How can I be autonomous and be free and at the same time be in a relationship that's healthy? How can I release all of those beliefs that in some moment I could be abandoned and change the need for relationship into relationship as something that's just profit, On top of everything that I have, I can also have all of these beautiful relationships, but not needing them because I'm already all that I need. And then all of the beliefs about work, third chakra, um, that it's in relationship with society that is going to define my value and worth. But I start with myself as the treasure, as the jewel, the priceless jewel of the third chakra. And then from there, I can say, uh, with this understanding of myself as having all the value that I need, now how can I take that and bring that out into the world? And then all of my beliefs at the level of the heart, at the level of the heart chakra, with all the wounding that I've experienced, with all the things that didn't work out, how can I take that and see that that was all necessary? That was all necessary to bring me to this moment where I can finally open my heart to life, open my heart to what's good and also what's challenging, and learn from both. So working with all of these beliefs, and then at the level of the fifth chakra, am I really this personality, or am I something more? And so then that starts to take me to that spiritual level, sixth and seventh chakras, where I can start to experience that clarity, but with all of these levels released. And then when I look at healing, how am I going to work at each level? I want to make the person comfortable at the level of the emotions. I want to teach them that they can open to their emotions and accept them, that they can learn to relax through these exercises of yoga. Um, I also want to teach them to work with the beliefs. I want to give them to spiritual experiences, but also to let them know that they can't leapfrog into those spiritual experiences, that they're going to have to clean out everything at all these different levels. And then we're going to have to work with the emotional body, and then work with the chakras to clear out the energy body. And that all of this clearing, all of this purification is finally going to create healing at the level of our physical body.
Beautiful explanation. Now, Joseph LePage, founder of Integrative Yoga Therapy, your explanation of the five koshas was really fundamental and transformative for me. And again, deeply informs my work as a medical intuitive healer. Many people don't know what the koshas are. They either think, well, I'm a soul, or they think I'm a body, but they don't understand. Can you explain for our audience the five koshas?
Yeah. So kosha means a sheath, or is just something that contains something else. And they come from a very ancient text called the Taittiriya Upanishad from about 3,500 years ago. And in this text, a boy goes to his father and says, Father, can you show me what illumination is? And he says, you're going to have to go out and contemplate. And so he goes out and he contemplates 5 times and he says, Father, I've understood that I'm a body. And Father says, yes, you are. And then he says, Father, I understand that I'm energy. Yes, that's true, but continue. And then, Father, I've understood that I'm thoughts and feelings. Yes, you are. And then he says, Father, I understand that actually I'm the observer of those thoughts and feelings. And that's true. And then he says, Father, I've understood now that I'm spirit. And then beyond that, he actually comes back to understand that you're all of these and you're more than all of these. You are the creator of all of these. You are Brahman. You are God. You are that. You are everything. You are the whole universe. And so this is the story of the 5 koshas in the Taittiriya Upanishad. And then in each one, as we look at our own health, we have to create vehicles for health at each of these levels. So at the level of the physical body, we need the yoga, we need the diet, we need the lifestyle. And at the level of the energy body called the pranamaya kosha, the sheath made of prana, we need to work with the chakras, we need to work with the pranavayus. and we need to work with the nadis. So we need to be aware of the flow of energy at all these levels. At the level of thoughts and feelings, the first thing we need to do is to become comfortable with them and to be able to accept them and to learn to relax. Because without that relaxation, without that comfort at the level of my emotions, how am I going to start to look at my beliefs? And then I can start to look at the limiting beliefs. And finally, all of these spiritual experiences are going to start to unfold. And I see these spiritual experiences most importantly as values in our daily life. So I may experience those as a deep level of feeling, but actually, what I want to do is to ask myself if I have created clearing and stability and wholeness at all of those levels. At the level of the first chakra, have I created wholeness so that I feel safe and secure? At the second chakra, have I created stability and fluidity in relationship? At the third chakra, have I created energy and vitality and a sense of meaning in life? At the fourth chakra, can I live with love and compassion? And at the fifth chakra, um, have I been able to release this relationship to my identity at the level of the personality? And each day at the level of values, not at the level of spiritual experiences, but at the level of values, have I created wholeness at each of those levels that allow me to live as a complete person? So these are the five levels, and I can use them as a way of spiritual healing, saying that I have to work from the bottom up. I have to create health at the level of the physical body, health at the level of the chakras and the flow of energy, health at the level of all of my interactions at the level of the emotional body, and then health at the level of clearing all of these core beliefs that keep me from moving forward. And then I can really live in those values. Then I can experience wholeness. I can experience truth. I can experience fullness. I can experience a knowing of who I am and how the world works. I can experience clarity. And those values on a daily basis in how I live, how I work, how I interact, all of those are really the fruit of working with these koshas. And then finally, to see that even beyond that, I am Brahman, I am God, I am the universe, but not as a spiritual experience. Of course, those can happen, but as an everyday experience, as a sense of God within, God without in each moment.
Now, Joseph LePage, for our audience, would you be willing to go through the Sanskrit name of each of the koshas
Yeah.
just briefly so that our audience has a deeper understanding of what's
Yeah.
happening with them?
Yeah. So the first is Annamaya. Anna literally means food. It refers to anything that's solid. And so that's my physical body, and it's the systems of the body, and it's also these five elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space, at a very physical level. And then the pranamaya kosha, it's made up, of course, of the chakras. And then the pranavayus are these flows of energy that that really nourish the physical body. And then the nadis, all the subtle channels of energy. And then at the level of, that's the pranamaya kosha, so the body made of prana. And then the third level, the manomaya kosha, manas means the mind, so it's the body made of mind. So this is the stimulus response mind, it's the conditioned mind. It's made of thoughts and feelings, and they're really not who we are because we receive them all from family, religion, society, culture, and of course, instincts. And so I think of that body as I and me without really knowing that it's just conditioning. So that's the body of mind. And then the next one is Vijnana Maya Kosha. Vijnana Maya, it's the body made of wisdom. And what is the wisdom? It's the wisdom to see that I am not all that conditioning. And so this is where I start to look at if I have anger, what is the belief behind that? Where did that come up in my family? So it's a kind of an inner contemplation, an inner psychotherapy in a way that allows me to see the how, the where, the when, the why, to understand, to honor all of those feelings. Yes, I did suffer. Yes, I did experience trauma. Yes, I experienced all of those things. They are real, and they're real at the level of the Manomaya Kosha, but at the level of the Vijnanamaya Kosha, I can see that no, who I am is actually the observer of those things. So I take those lower koshas and I put them on the shelf. And then I see that this observer is the one thing that I cannot put on the shelf. I can observe the body, I can observe the thoughts and feelings, I can observe things in the physical world. But then if I try to put that observer on the shelf, I find it's impossible. Because even if I put an image of the observer on the shelf, someone's still observing that observer. So that's the Vijnanamaya Kosha. In yoga, sometimes called the drashtu, the seer, the inner seer. And so that wisdom I gain by dismantling all of these beliefs that I'm the body, or even that I'm the chakras, or even that I'm my mind and emotions. And I begin to gain that clarity. And it's from that clarity that I start to experience the Anandamaya Kosha. Anandamaya Kosha is the body of bliss, Ananda. And I see that who I am is actually everything that I want is already within me. I am that bliss. I am that knowledge. I am that truth. I am that wholeness. And all of these arise through this process of going through the different koshas. And finally, I see I'm Brahman. I'm the universe. I'm the whole. I'm the total. So I include all of those koshas, and I'm also beyond them.
Beautiful explanation. Now, you're the co-author of a book, Mudras for Healing and Transformation. What exactly, can you explain for our audience, what are mudras? And some of our audience is going to be able to see this, and some of us are going to just hear about it. So what are mudras?
Well, mudras are gestures. There's several different kinds of gestures. There's gestures of the body. There's gestures of the face, like where you turn the eyes inward to look at the third eye. But the most common are gestures of the hand. They're called hasta mudras, and there are literally thousands of them. But we have in our book, we have 108, and it just took some of the ones that are the most powerful, the ones that can be tuned into. And the mudras are kind of like a radio show. And so they're kind of like in the old days when they had the rabbit ears. And so I adjust those rabbit ears until I start to get a signal. And this signal is actually all of these different qualities. And so these great masters, they would go into deep meditation and they would experience these qualities. And then these gestures like this Jnana Mudra, which is one of the most well-known, then these gestures would arise. Maybe they started their meditation with their hands just on their laps. And then this gesture just formed because of something they were experiencing in their meditation. And so this becomes a gesture of wholeness, of balance, of clear seeing. And it's not something they created. And then as these gestures arose, then they can repeat that experience for themselves. And they can also pass on these qualities to their students. And
Now,
so each of the gestures awakens a quality.
Joseph LePage, as you know, most people who begin to be introduced to yoga come to yoga through an asana practice, through the practice of postures.
Mhm.
What are the 8 limbs of yoga?
Mhm. Well, the 8 limbs of yoga, I'll go through them one at a time. So the first one are the yamas. These are the precepts such as nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, and of course they all have importance, but a little different in yoga. Rather than being commandments, what I want to do is create a space where I avoid conflict both within myself and with others, so that when I go into meditation, I can rest there and not think about what I did, what I didn't do, what I should have done better, what I did to others. And so I want to have my inner world and my outer world completely clear. I don't want to have attachment. I don't want to have any grasping. I don't want to have jealousy. I don't want to have any misuse of sexuality, not against sexuality, but I don't have it used in, I don't want to have sexuality used in a way where um, guilt and shame or loneliness are going to come back to bite me in my meditation. So those are the yamas, the ethical precepts. And then we have the niyamas. The niyamas are a roadmap for this journey. So the first one is purity. And so obviously I'm not going to make my mind pure, but I'm going to create an intention for purity. And what that purity is actually a space where I'm willing to see things in a new way. And what is the main thing that I want to see in a new way? That maybe I'm not the personality. So unless I can start with that understanding, with that pure space where I can let go of the personality and see that I might be something else, then I can't go forward. So I have to start with purity. And then the next is going to be contentment. And contentment doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be content. It means that as I move toward an understanding of my true self, I'm willing to be present with the ups and downs. And I'm willing to be content with the ups and downs. And that contentment is ultimately going to open me to a space of deeper contentment. Then the next one is self-study, so that I'm willing to look at everything that happens, good and bad, understand the how, the why, the where, how it came into being, and ultimately choose what I want to bring into my life and what I want to leave behind. And then the last of these niyamas, surrender to God, is really a surrender to this higher self, that I am part of this whole. I am one with this universe. I am one with this life stream, and that I can trust that life stream. I can lay down in it. I can relax. I can be part of that stream and say, Lord, thy will be done. So these are the niyamas. So I start out with the yamas, the ethical precepts, the niyamas, a roadmap for the journey, and then asana. And then what do these books say about asana? They actually say that asana is going to be a steady, comfortable seat that is going to allow me to release all the tensions in my body and mind so that I can focus on the infinite. And that focus on the infinite is going to allow me to develop immunity in relation to all of life's ups and downs. So this is the way the Yoga Sutras, the main text of yoga, describes asana. And then we go to pranayama, and pranayama says that we're learning to expand and channel the breath and the flow of energy so that I can remove all the veils that keep me from seeing clearly. And then I'm going to go to pratyahara, which is going to be turning the senses inward, which is a way of ultimately saying that actually all that I have within me, this whole universe within me, all the ways that I can see and feel and hear and touch within myself are already enough to be whole and complete. And that I can release my attachment to all of these things outside of me, so that then, becoming pure and free, I can again turn my senses outward to the world, but seeing beauty as it is, seeing life as it is, without all of the filters, without all of the attachments. So next, I'm going to move to dharana, which is concentration. And this is a way of saying that by learning to concentrate on one single thing in meditation, that ultimately I can learn to concentrate on that one single thing that really means anything, which is my true being. This is concentration, dharana. And then we have dhyana. Dhyana is meditation. And so in dhyana, the body, asana, the breath, pranayama, the mind in pratyahara. And then finally, I'm going to bring those all together through concentration. They'll be like 4 flowing streams that come into a river of meditation, so that body, breath, senses, and mind are flowing together smoothly. And so it's like 4 streams form a river. And that effortless river that include the body, the breath, the senses, and the mind is meditation. And finally, when that river empties into the ocean, that's samadhi. So, and there I realize that I'm neither the stream nor the river, maybe not even the ocean, and maybe not even water, but just the various subtle elements that bring all of those together. And so in that level, I become the universe in samadhi.
Wonderful explanation of the 8 limbs of yoga. Now, Joseph LePage, what are the 5 kleshas?
The kleshas are what keep us from experiencing meditation easily and freely. They're what keep us from going into samadhi. And obviously the main one is, it's called avidya, not knowing who I am, believing that I'm the limited personality. So if you have that belief, you really, you can't really move forward to this level of samadhi, because samadhi, you're at the level of the universe. And if you believe that you're the limited personality, then everything in yoga in a certain way, each of the 8 limbs are going to work together toward the realization that you are not the limited personality. So that realization is called vidya, knowledge. And the lack of that realization is called avidya, a lack of knowledge of who we are. If I don't have that knowledge, or at least if I'm not moving in that direction, then the next one is asmita. Asmita is egotism. So if I see myself as a part and not the whole, I'm going to see that that part has to do everything. That part has to be everything. I have to be in control. I have to do it. Things have to go my way. Everything has to revolve around me. So that egotism is asmita. It's the second one of the kleshas. And the third one, naturally, to be everything, I'm going to be filled with desire. I got to have this, got to have that. I got to have material things, got to have relationships, got to have spiritual powers, things at every level. Since I'm not, once I have vidya knowledge, then I'm complete. But when I am in avidya, lack of knowledge, I'll always be incomplete. I'll always desire something. That desire is called raga. I'll always have the flip side of that desire, which is the next to the kleshas. It's called devesha. I'm always going to be disliking something. I'm always going to be disliking something, evaluating, judging other people. You did this to me. I don't like you. I don't like that group. I don't like parts of myself. I don't like the parts of myself that can't get what I like, can't satisfy all of these desires. So these are the dislikes, the deveshas, the aversions. And finally, we have the abhiniveshas, the fear of death. It's not only a fear of death, but it's this wondering, is my life really worthwhile? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And it's this existential anxiety where others may think that we're good. Other people may think what we're doing is right. But there's this uneasiness within ourselves. Do I really believe this? And what yoga is saying is, like in that movie, The Truman Show, he had this inkling that something's not right here. I'm not comfortable here. Something's not right. Is someone looking over my shoulder? So that's abhinivesha. Along with fear of death, it's a fear that between now and the time I die, am I doing what I'm really supposed to be doing? Am I really living my life? So it's those 5 kleshas that keep us from entering into samadhi, which would be equivalent to being in that anandamaya kosha, that highest level of knowing. And it's the 8 limbs of yoga that help us to remove these 5 kleshas.
Great explanation. Now, Joseph LePage, you teach, and again, your books are influential for yoga practitioners all over the world. What does your personal yoga practice look like these days?
Mm-hmm. My personal practice, I still do hatha yoga every day. I love to practice the Tibetan yoga, the kumye, these movements in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm practicing pranayama quite a bit to finish the new book, Pranayamas for Healing and Transformation. So, and looking at all the ways that mudras can support the pranayamas and yoga postures can support the pranayamas. And I have a practice of meditation, which is samadhi, but it's samadhi on the 5 elements. So I practice each of the elements and I go into samadhi on each of the elements. Then I bring them all up together. So earth, water, fire, air, and space. So I go into deep meditation on each of the 5 elements. And I also look at, reflect on how at each of these levels of my being, at each of these 5 elements, at the level of the body, at the level of the mind, how have I purified myself today? How could I have lived better? How could have I avoided doing any kind of harm or violence? So it's not only going more deeply into these 5 elements, but the 5 elements are related to each of the chakras. So I use the chakras as a model of asking myself, at the level of survival, have I lived in the best way possible? At the level of relationship, have I lived in the best way possible? At the level of society, have I lived in the best way possible? At the level of my heart, have I lived in the best way possible? At the level of my spiritual practice, have I lived it the best way possible? So as we purify these chakras, we're actually purifying these 5 elements. And then, I gain a level of clarity at each of these 5 elements. And then I go into deep samadhi where I go beyond the mind and beyond the 5 elements.
Thank you for sharing your personal practice. Now, as you know, many people come to yoga through an asana practice. In
Yeah.
your professional opinion, in this day and age, what does it actually mean to be a yogi?
Well, I'd say that I would say to be a yogi is being part of a movement that is leading humanity toward its only natural place in evolution. And whether this is at the most commercial level, where someone is, whatever it is, just introducing yoga practices on the internet, something completely physical, or whether they're practicing deeper practices of meditation, whether they're working with yoga for their own healing through yoga therapy. I believe that all of these things have a place. And sometimes the culture needs to move at subtle levels, and it needs to move at gross levels. And so that these people who are, in a certain sense, selling yoga at the grossest level, they're also important because they have an audience, and people are watching them. And I think it's part of a larger movement. And what this movement is, that nothing that we have in the world today is going to take us there. And I believe that the organized religions are also going to transform and begin to incorporate yoga into what they're doing. Speaking as someone who I believe I have a personal relationship with Christ, what I would say is that organized religion is also going to transform in some way, and that all of this is going to take us to a place where simple belief is not going to do it. And also politics in the form of, let's say, socialism, any of these ideas of socialism, certainly not going to do it. Materialism and capitalism, certainly not going to get us there. Though there may be parts of all of those things which make sense: organized religion, models of socialism, and even models of capitalism, all may make sense in some way, but humanity needs to go somewhere. And none of those models are going to take us to a place where we can stop destroying the environment, stop destroying each other, stop these mass shootings, stop this rampant materialism, or even stop the kinds of totalitarianism that goes with these in some of these socialist countries where there's no freedom. So where do we stop all of this? A society has to move forward. And I say yoga is the answer. I say yoga and spirituality, I'd say they're our only answer, because they're taking us to who we are. And if materialism can't answer it, if socialism can't answer it, if none of these things can be the answer, then people are going to have to find that answer within themselves. And then politics and religion and our habits of spending and our whole economy, they're going to have to be transformed from the inside out. And so I would say that anyone who is practicing something that takes humanity to a more peaceful place, to a more centered place, to a place where they're finding answers inside themselves, and they're not so dependent on materialism or religion or politics, where that self-knowledge starts to be the basis of all of these other things, I would say that that's yoga.
Very profound answer. Thank you so much for that. Now, Joseph LePage, when you look back over your many years teaching and practicing yoga, what is the one thing that you wish that more people really understood about yoga?
Well, we just finished a group here. We have our center here called Enchanted Mountain, Montanha Encantada in Portuguese. It's the largest yoga center in South America. We just finished a group here. And when I think over the years, what I see in that group, what I see this connection to their true self in a weekend of yoga. And so a lot of types of yoga and yoga teachers would say, no, we just have to teach asana first. And so we teach them, this is Introduction to Yoga, 3 days. And so in the end of that introduction, they have a sense of the philosophy of yoga. They have a sense of the chakras, and they come out with a new vision of who they are. And you mentioned that you gained that vision. And so that vision of I can be an answer for myself, and that can be an answer that is life is worth living. My life is worth living. I have an answer for myself, and I know how to live. That's what I see in our students. And that's what's been most important for me.
Very, very profound information. And Joseph LePage, you can read his books, The Yoga Toolbox, Yoga for Teacher and Students, and also Mudras for Healing and Transformation. This is Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author, and also, I don't usually mention this, but yoga teacher. Age 62, I still teach yoga 7 times a week here in Atlanta. Really very much value my yoga practice. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletters so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. You can find out more about Joseph LePage and his life-changing work at iytyogatherapy.com. And remember, you're more than your body, you're more than your limited sense of self. You are a whole being. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.